Hey guys, it's great to be back. It's back at streaming. It's the RAMZPAUL show Friday night. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. I hope you've been enjoying all my daily videos. And I did a Friday video about Ukraine for my Substack supporters. And I should advertise more my Substack. We have a great community there. The link's below. If you check it out, I'd love to have you part of that. We on Tuesday nights we have a roundtable and we have a discussion. Then Friday I have a separate video for Substack people. So I highly encourage you guys to be there. Hey, Zoom Gadget. And yeah, I'm streaming this Friday night, July 18th. And I kind of updated my schedule a little bit. On Thursdays, I do Daylight Dispatch with Sasha. Friday nights, I kind of do a recap of the week and we talk about what's in the news. I still haven't decided what to do on Wednesday nights. I'm still looking at some ideas. I'm bouncing some ideas off. Obviously, Z-Man was a great loss. May he rest in peace. But we'll move on. So if you want to support the show, and I really do appreciate you and count on you guys, there's SuperChats on YouTube. Rumble has Rants, Powerchats right here, and Streamelements has a tip feature. So whatever you can, if you have a question or comment, it helps make the show better, and I promise I will get to it. Sometimes I'm, because it's just me, I don't have a staff. Sometimes I will get to it a little bit later in the show, but I will get to it. All right, this week, a lot of stuff happened this week. I'm not going to go in order of importance. I'm just going to go in over, I think, some key stuff that happened this week. The week started off economically. I think economics is, everything else is kind of fun, like all the gossip and stuff, Trump and Epstein and Lauren Southern and all that. But most people care about the economy. And the week started off Trump announcing a 30% tariff against EU and Mexico. That's going to begin on August 1st. So we'll have to see what happens with that. Many times Trump has done this as a kind of a negotiating tactic. If you remember April 2nd, Liberation Day, he kind of scaled that back. So we'll see what happens on that. The other thing that happened this week is inflation inched up a little bit. It wasn't bad, but it was up a little bit. And this causes a problem Trump has with the Federal Reserve. He really needs Powell to cut the interest rates because we have such a huge debt that the higher the interest rates, the more expensive it is to service that debt. We're getting into problems financially. And a lot of the spurg out that that happened with Doge and Elon Musk, it's real. I mean, we do have financial problems coming up, and Trump is desperately trying to keep the interest rates down. But traditionally, the Federal Reserve, the traditional model, if inflation's running hot, you raise the interest rates because it kind of drains the money in the economy. Because just so you know, it's not like the Federal Reserve prints money. A lot of people think that. Like, oh, the government just prints money. Not really. What it does is how money gets into our system mostly is through borrowing. So like if you borrow a loan to buy your house, it's not like your bank literally has that money. They just create it out of thin air, and then you pay them back. And that's how it works. And the lower the interest rates, the more it encourages economic development, but at the same time, it pushes more money into the system, which can create inflation. So the Federal Reserve, their primary tool is to try to influence the interest rate. And when the interest rates are high, it tends to combat inflation. When it's low, it does economic growth. And Trump has really been pushing Powell to lower the interest rates, and Powell has been resisting because he says inflation is still there. So I don't know what's going to happen there, but Trump had one of his meltdowns about that. The other interesting news item that I think we got to be aware of is how this is the economy isn't the same for everyone. There's certain demographics that's hurting more than other people. And the young people, recent Gen Z graduates, about 58% of recent Gen Z graduates are still looking for full-time work, compared to 25% of earlier graduates like millennials and Gen X. So it used to be you get out of college, 75% of people got a job pretty quick right away out of college. I did. I graduated in 1985, and before I graduated, I had a job lined up. Yeah, I was in tech, and you had your senior year, you'd had a lot of big tech companies would go to college campuses and recruit people. And electronic data systems, they recruited me. I thought, hey, it sounded kind of fun, move out of state. And because I was raised in Colorado, and so I immediately got a job. But the big salary of $20,000 a year sounded like a lot of money back then, and it was. I felt rich, and but that's no longer the case anymore. And I think that's because of a couple of reasons. One reason is AI. I mean, the whole idea of AI is just replacing programming jobs and a lot of white collar jobs. And it's only going to get worse as AI gets more sophisticated. And the other issue is these H-1B visas. It's outrageous that Trump still allows these. H-1B visas are almost all Indians that they get in, and allows tech companies. Supposedly with H-1B, it's just supposed to be if you can't get an American to do the job, you can go overseas and get it. But they lie about that. So they bring in all these H-1Bs, again, usually from India. It's a lower wage. They cut American programmers out. And Indians, they have a lot of nepotism, very similar like other ethnic groups like Jewish people and so forth. And once Indians get over as hiring manager, they bring in all their cousins and everything else. And India has a very corrupt culture, and not just tech, I think in all fields, where it's a lot of cheating, fake resumes. That's kind of how they operate. So it's causing a lot of problems in this country. We should end definitely the H-1B visas, but I don't know if that will happen, but it definitely needs to happen there. Hey, and it's good to see you all in chat. Thank you for being here. And again, if you have any questions, Rants and Rumble, SuperChats on YouTube and Powerchats, I appreciate. So that's kind of the economic news. All right, now we get into immigration. Immigration is always a big issue. It is probably the biggest issue because if we don't have our country, if we've been replaced, what's the point? Again, a nation is not the dirt. It's not the government. It's the people. If you replace the people, you don't have your nation anymore. And so there's this real tension, whereas Trump's policies are trying to help us get us back our nation. But you have a lot of people that are opposed to that. And this week started off again with a federal judge. Seems like this is always the case. But we had this Biden-appointed judge, Mami Uwusi Minch Frimpong. I don't know if they clicked with a name. So Mami Uwusi Minsha Frimpong has just made a ruling that ICE can't go to Home Depot, car washes, and other locations where illegals hide. It's because she's trying to, obviously she probably hates white people. She's a DEI, she was put in that position. So this is really an ethnic battle that's going on. And Stephen Miller said, the ruling has just been issued. A communist judge in LA has ordered ICE to report directly to her and the radical left NGOs, not the president. This is another act of insurrection against the United States and its sovereign people. I agree. And we don't have any obligation to follow the nonsense that's put up by judges like this. It's all a joke. We can't play with this joke anymore. And we got to forget about it. So, but this is an issue, and this is a problem we're going to be dealing with constantly with the federal judges versus Trump and Congress. But we're making progress. But we still have to work through it. And this isn't an issue just of the United States. This is a fundamental issue to really all white nations. The goal is to replace us so we no longer have any homelands. And it's been in the works for a long time. It's just coming to the head. In Spain, they've had horrible violence where they're importing a lot of Africans into Spain for low cost wages. They're starting to attack people, the native people there, and there's been a lot of riots. Now, the media is blaming it on the so-called far right, but it isn't. It's just normal Spanish people are like, what the hell? What's happening with our country? So we're seeing this across all these nations, and a couple of stories with the Spanish riots that's up there, but just the outrageous nature of it. There's a couple of stories from Germany, and Germany is not a free country; they're controlled by other groups. But here's the situation in Germany. 9 underage girls were sexually abused by Syrians at a swimming pool. And so these are the so-called refugees that come into Germany, supposedly, we're refugees. Assad's gone, so they should go back, number one. But they have no intention of going back. And they molest German girls because they think they can get away with it, and they would be right. And instead of doing anything to the Syrians, like arrest them, the German mayor, blamed climate change and hot weather. And they said the hot weather was agitating the Syrians. And you know what happens? It gets hot outside, you got to molest girls. At least that's what the judge said. So this is really crazy. Worse than Weimar Germany situation we have now. But this is what we're having to face. It's just incredible. And there needs to be a massive rebellion against the corruption of trying to really ethnically replace and destroy our people. And again, German judge, I bet I could guess the ethnicity of this judge, lets 8 men who gang raped a girl walk free. And it's a brutal gang rape that lasted nearly 3 hours. And the DNA evidence implicated 9 of the rapists, so there's no doubt. But a psychiatrist, Nala Sama, that doesn't sound very German to me, said the gang rape may be due to the frustration that comes with the migration experience. And here's a German judge, and yeah, if you check her background, I think you would be right. Obviously, she hates the German people, and she probably thinks it's funny that these immigrants came over and brutally raped this girl. But they said, well, because it's so frustrating, it's a hassle. When you migrate to a new country, you got to pack your bags. Maybe your luggage is lost. So you got to get out your frustration by attacking a German girl. So they let her go. Let her go. This is what we're facing right now. It's unbelievable, but it is horrible. And it's just not Germany. It's not just Germany, as we saw this week. The corruption across the Europe, and again, because they're trying to destroy our homelands, it's just not America. And here it is in Britain. What happened in Britain? And Britain is a nation that's going bankrupt right now. They're very poor. They used to be a very powerful country, but they've been told they are evil because they're white and they need to be replaced. So they've been importing all these people, even though the British have nothing to apologize for. They brought civilization to much of the world. But, you evil colonialist. So they're all pouring in now to Britain. And the UK, they spent $9 billion to secretly smuggle in 40,000 Afghans into Britain. The Taliban, where they do the bachi, where they have sex with young boys. I guess that would be work with Pride Month. But they say, yeah, these are the people we need to bring into Britain. But they brought them in a secret way where the judge said that the media couldn't even report on this. So the UK, that's bankrupt, gave these immigrants $9 billion and gave them houses and everything. And there's British people that can't afford to live. And this is what is happening across all these countries. And again, this was just accidentally leaked. It's creating a scandal in Britain because this was all trying to be hidden from the public. You would think the House of Commons should be aware of this, all this money spent spent on Afghans coming into Britain. But no, the judge ruled that had to be secret, but it was released. And if we take a look at a video on this, they talk about this a little more.
And
I mean, because the cat's out of the bag now. So let's take a look at this.
let me just ask you about the Afghan story, because obviously, it's a massive problem for the Tory government of the last few years, with Rishi Sunak in charge of it. Also a massive problem for Labour as well. But in terms of the people who have come in,
it's a problem because they hid this from the British people, the so-called democracy. And Britain's like bragging they've lowered the voting age to 16. Obvious reasons: younger kids can be easier manipulated. Plus, the younger population is heavily Islamic. A lot of Pakistanis and Afghans come in. So it's a further way to help destroy the nation. But they don't really care what the people think in a so-called democracy. They did all this in secret.
And it looks like there might be about 36 or 40,000 by the end of it. Are we supposed to support them for the rest of their lives? Is that supposed to be them coming in here to get a free house and free benefits and all the rest of it? Because if we're giving them a free house when they get here, what incentive is there for them to pay for anything?
Right. They live in a shithole. They go to Britain, they get a free house when a lot of people, white British, are having troubles making ends meet. And these people get a free home.
Well, again, under the current system and what they would qualify for, the answer is basically yes. I mean, I'm sure a lot of them will choose to work, but we are making it a choice.
So it's chose. They don't have to work if they don't want to. They can stay on the welfare forever.
Yeah, but if they choose to work, what's the point of them choosing to work to try and buy a house if they've already got a free one?
Yeah, or a car or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
I mean, particularly for social housing, especially if there are children in your household,
then and most of them have kids, as far as I know.
Yeah, and the way
they have tons of kids, which, by the way, that's why they lowered the voting age to 16, because they want more of them to vote.
The housing list works.
This is why a democracy doesn't work in a multicultural society. The Jewish people in Israel understand this. That's why they want to get rid of the people in Gaza. They don't want them to come in because they have a democracy, and they understand if they can vote, they won't have self-determination. And our enemy understands this. That's why they want to flood our countries, and they're always talking about democracies. So we no longer have self-determination. We can't control how we go with our people. This is their goal.
You will go straight to the top of the housing list. So it's inevitable that there will be a lot of British people who are waiting on that social housing list who will go down many, many, many places.
So poor British people are being kicked off the list for these Afghans that were snuck in in secret by the government. And and again, Britain is not a rich nation that they can really afford this. If you take a look at this right here, Britain no longer a rich country after living standards plunge. So the standard of living in Britain is not going up. So you remember we were always told that, we got to bring in diversity because it enriches the country. But if you look at the data, that's not the case. I mean, intuitively, we know this. You bring in a lot of primitive people from the Stone Age that don't work, that does not enrich your country. But we were told, no, you got to do this. You got to do this. A global economy. How are we going to compete in the global economy unless you have all these different people in? No matter Britain, for hundreds of years, they dominated the global economy, and they were like 99% British people, white British. They did great. Now they're bringing all these people in, and they're getting very poor. So parts of the UK are worse off than the poorest region of Slovenia and Lithuania. Britain is no longer a rich country after 15 years of stagnation caused UK living standards to plummet, according to economists, leaving parts of the UK worse off than the poorest nations, including Slovenia and Lithuania. So despite all this, they're still bringing in Afghans just to get on welfare and get a free house. If you don't believe now that our governments hate us, this is what is happening. Hey, I got $5 from Kim, my Finnish friend. Thank you. Just buy silver. The collapse is coming. Well, something is coming. That is for sure. This can't continue on forever. We are in for it is coming to a head. It really is. So, It is pretty crazy. So the immigration stuff, that was a big story this week. All right. The other big story this week was Epstein. That's a story that won't die. And part of this problem is Trump. He announced to his base, and they were amazed because a lot of his base were big on the deep state controls everything. And Epstein was running a blackmail operation on his little island there. And finally, we have one of our people in there that's going to expose all the pedophiles and the deep state. Maybe they're being blackmailed by a foreign power, probably Mossad, because he was connected to Israel. And that was going to happen. And then, when they got in office, Pam Bondi said, we're going to get on top of it. I have the list on my desk. And then there was a phase one, remember, with all the influencers. They look kind of stupid. They all danced with their binders. And then all the binders, everything in the binders was redacted, so it didn't mean anything. And everyone was waiting, like, okay, we have phase one. Where's phase two of the list? And then it all came out. Trump said, the whole Epstein thing is just a hoax, guys. And anyone who believed in it are stupid. So he called a lot of his base stupid. And it was just a conspiracy theory that the Democrats made up. And everyone was like, what? What are you talking about? Before the election, you guys were talking about this nonstop, especially Dan Bongino, Patel, and Bondi. All these Republicans were talking about it, the Epstein. And now Trump is just like hand waving. No, it's all a hoax. It's not real. And it's not like we were imagining things. So let's just this was a video that kind of shows some of this. So, Trump's acting like this was nothing. But if you look back just before the election or during the election, let's take a trip down memory lane here.
Bill Clinton.
Nice guy. Got a lot of problems coming up, in my opinion, with the famous island with Jeffrey Epstein. A lot of problems.
Do really think the Clintons are involved in Jeffrey Epstein's death? I have no idea. I know he was on his plane 27 times, and he said he was on the plane 4 times. But when they checked the plane log, Bill Clinton, who is a very good friend of Epstein, he was on the plane about 27 or 28 times. Why did he say 4 times? And then the question you have to ask is, did Bill Clinton go to the island? Because Epstein had an island. That was not a good place, as I understand it, and I was never there. So you have to ask, did Bill Clinton go to the island? That's the question. If you find that out, you're going to know a lot.
It's all been a big hoax. It's perpetrated by the Democrats, and some stupid Republicans and foolish Republicans fall into the net.
So their idea was that it was all, so this is a big break, right? I mean, he was talking about how this is a huge thing, and his staff was. And so he's saying you're a stupid Republican if you believe this. But let's take a look at his own son. This was his own son.
Even been brought to light. How is it that my father could be convicted of 34 crimes, but no one on Epstein's list has even been brought to light? I'm trying to figure out how that's possible, right, folks? It's almost like they're trying to protect those pedophiles for some reason. I can't imagine why, right?
So this is where it came from. So Trump, is your son stupid? And so Donald Trump Jr. referred to an Epstein list and what were the pedophiles doing? And the answer we got from like Pam Bondi, I have to be honest, wasn't a great response. She was saying that, well, we can't release anything because we need to protect the victims' identities and a lot of it's child porn. And I don't think anyone is asking to release the names or showing the faces or anything like that of the girls involved that are underage. It's kind of a red herring. Who were the clients, right? Maxwell got convicted of sex trafficking, so there had to be clients. Wasn't there clients? I assume there were clients. If there was sex trafficking and you're using underage girls, because this wasn't just just regular prostitutes. The issue was underage girls at this island. She was convicted, and he was convicted too in a Miami case, a case in Miami and New York City. So the question was, well, who were the Johns? Who were the clients? That's what people want to know. And either that's the list we're referring to. And was that list destroyed, or it was all made up? It was a hoax, it sounds like Trump is saying. But if it was all a hoax, why were they pushing it so much during the election? So there's a lot of, I think, issues here that are happening. And then just earlier this week, well, today actually, yesterday, let me back up a little bit. There became a story from the Wall Street Journal. Supposedly in 2005, Donald Trump sent Epstein a birthday card or a letter typewritten that was a poem, and it was supposedly he drew a naked woman and signed his name, and it looked really fishy. And Trump says it's a lie. And right now, Donald Trump seeks at least $10 billion in damages in the lawsuits against News Corporation and Rupert Murdoch and others over the Wall Street Journal article on Epstein. And that was this idea that, Trump actually sent this thing to Epstein. I don't think it was. I think it's just bullshit. I think Trump will probably win, because if Trump he wouldn't bring up this lawsuit, because then you have discovery. So I do think this was a hoax, but this whole thing is just getting messy because of that. So this is where we stand right now. Trump plans to sue them. And Trump did know Epstein back in the late 90s, early 2000s. In fact, he was interviewed. He said, hey, Epstein's a great guy. But to be fair, it doesn't mean he knew what Epstein was doing. They're all rich and they're in the same circles. So that was part of the issue. So that was the Epstein thing that really did a lot for this week. And the other thing that happened this week were the State Department layoffs. I love it. There's been a lot of layoffs now because of the Doge cuts. And it's good that the government workers are finally facing what the private sector faces. And most of these State Department employees do not add much value. They actively oppose us. So I think that was a good thing to see them going. All right. The other thing that happened this week is Israel, our best little friends in the Middle East. They killed another 6 children. Hey, what would be a week without killing civilians? It's what the Israelis do. And then today, what happened? Israel's Mossad director, right? He visited D.C. this week to help U.S. help in convincing countries to accept hundreds of thousands of Palestinians from Gaza. So Israel is looking to ethnically cleanse Gaza. I don't know how else to say it. They're trying to remove these people. They don't want them into Israel, notice. Why don't they want these people into Israel? If everyone's the same, when diversity enriches you, why don't the Israelis want them in their homeland? Well, because they know that these Palestinians would vote and they would no longer have self-determination. It wouldn't be a Jewish homeland. Oh, we can't tolerate that, right? Okay, I can agree with that. But now they have the chutzpah to say, we got to take these people, or Europe needs to take these Palestinians. They can't take them. They can't be bothered because they have their ethno state is for the Jewish people. But we have to take them, because if we don't take them, that means we're evil Nazi racists. We got to take these people. So talk about chutzpah, right? We pay for them to fight the war with Iran. We get involved with the war. We actually drop some bombs on the Iranian nuclear facility with our stealth bombers. We spent billions of dollars on Israel. And now Israel, they have the arrogance to come to Washington and demand that we, or maybe other European nations, need to take the Palestinians, because the Jewish people in Israel can't tolerate them. They're not going to put up with that. They want their homeland. But we have to take them. Otherwise, we're Nazis and racists, and we need them, because this is what gets people so upset about the whole thing, is this double standard. It's like, I don't think most people care about, they hate Jews or anything, but this idea that they get a homeland and we don't. It's just crazy. And we got to legally not only support their homeland, but fund it. Otherwise, we're an anti-Semite, right? Evil. But we can't have our homelands. And if we want to have our own homelands, we're just evil too. I think people are seeing through this and getting tired of this double standard. So Israel's in the news today. I'm not surprised. All right, let me just check everything. Thank you, Kim, for the power chat. And let's see here. And if you guys have any questions, just send in a power chat or rants or super chat. I appreciate it. All right. War in Ukraine and Russia. Trump started this week, again, getting deeper and deeper into the war with Ukraine. This was a mistake. I said from the beginning, when Trump got into office, he had the perfect opportunity to say, this is Joe Biden's war. It's none of our business. It's not America first. We're going to get out of it. I know he wanted to get to a peace agreement, but it didn't happen. But that was the perfect time for him to cut bait and get out of there. But he didn't do that. So now this is on Trump's lap. And Trump now is mad that Russia won't do a ceasefire. But why would Russia do a ceasefire? They're winning, right? And Russia considers the Donbass their territory, and Ukraine considers it theirs. So there's not really much to negotiate. And Russia's winning at this point. So Trump got mad, and he did a couple of things. He said that we're going to give more weapons to Ukraine, but we're not going to pay for it. That's how it's different than Joe Biden, because Joe Biden just gave them free weapons. But instead, what we're going to do is we're going to have NATO buy weapons from the United States and then send them to Ukraine. A couple of things that are kind of weird about this is NATO is, I don't think NATO's ever done this. NATO's just an alliance made up of like France, Germany, Britain, Canada, the United States. That's what NATO is, Belgium. And then each country, they provide their own armies and ammunition and so forth. I've never known NATO as an organization to procure weapons or anything like that. But Trump seems to think that's what NATO's going to do. Well, okay, but where does NATO get its funding? Well, NATO is funded by the 70% by the United States. I mean, we're the big funder. So it's like a shell game. It's like trying to trick us or something. We're still paying for it because we send money to NATO. Then NATO takes the money that we sent them and buys our weapons. So like, let's just cut out the middleman. It's stupid. It's just ridiculous. We're still paying for it, at least the majority of the weapons. And the other part is there's not that many weapons to go around. There's a lot of talk about the Patriot systems. But Rubio last week said we were running critically low of Patriot missiles and even systems because Ukraine had a bunch, but Russia destroyed them, most of them. Israel, our best little friend, needed Patriots for their little war with Iran. They shot off a ton of Patriot missiles. These are expensive missiles. They cost a couple $1 million each. And so there's a critical low shortage of these systems. And because we're not exactly an industrial powerhouse anymore, it's not like we're in the 1950s, where we're pumping out in a wartime economy. A lot of this stuff is very high tech, is complicated. And a lot of the semiconductors are made in Taiwan or China. And so it takes a long time to build these missiles. They're very expensive. And so we just don't have them to give. But Trump, I don't know if he was talking out his ass, but he said, we're going to give you 17 missile systems. Everyone's like, where's 17 missile systems? Who has this? And so that's like a big mystery. And all these countries are saying, no, we're not going to be providing any. We don't have any to spare. So I don't really think it's going to happen. And then there's the issue is, are they even really effective? The Patriot missiles, they don't look very effective against the newer hypersonic Russian missiles. And then there's the problem of drones. You have thousands of these drones that are pretty cheap. And yeah, you could shoot some down with a Patriot system, but it doesn't make sense to use a $2 million missile to shoot down a $20,000 drone. So there's problems there too. So that's kind of a mess on that end. I don't think it's going to help Ukraine very much. And then the other thing Trump was saying is that Russia has to agree to a peace or ceasefire in 50 days. Otherwise, we're going to put secondary tariffs on other countries. At that point, it's not really a tariff, it's a sanction, but I won't get into that. But this means a secondary tariff means anyone that trades with Russia, if they continue to trade with Russia, we will put a big tariff 100% on them. Because right now we have all these sanctions on Russia, and Russia doesn't really care because they trade with China, they trade with India, Brazil, a lot of countries, like half the world, ignore the sanctions. Even parts of Europe do. So Russia, they've been able to overcome the sanctions. So remember, Biden thought we put all these sanctions on, kick them off SWIFT, pull out McDonald's, Russia would collapse. Well, that hasn't happened. In fact, Russia's become more stronger economically, and they become more self-sufficient. They have a lot of factories, a lot of munitions there, and they have a lot of gas, oil, rare earth minerals. They do a lot of training with China and India. And so the point is, what's Trump going to do? Put 100% tariff on China? China has already said they're not going to give in. They're still going to trade with Russia. And if we put another huge tariff on China, that's what Trump tried to do, back in April. He had to roll that back because it spooked the market. So is he really going to do that in 50 days? China's betting no. Trump's not really going to do that. So unfortunately, we're getting kind of stuck into this stupid war, and that's where we are right now. So it's unfortunate, but we just can't get out of this war, and that's where we are. All right. Let's see here. A couple of things. Because of the demographic replacement, we're starting to see the results. And in New York City, he's a communist. I don't know what else to say. I'm not using that term loosely. A lot of people, his name is Zohran Mamdani. And he's not, he's supposedly Muslim, but he's really a gay race communist type of guy. And he came out with a video saying, oh, we should abolish prisons. And I'm like, well, and he said, what good are prisons? What's the point? It's like, well, it's to remove people that are dangerous to society. That's the point of prisons, because the same people do the crimes. And if you don't put them in prisons, well, they're going to be doing a lot more crimes. But Zohran, he wants to remove those prisons. So he wants dangerous criminals to roam the streets of New York City. And I always ask when he's saying this, there shouldn't be prisons. I want to say, oh, okay, so Zohran, hypothetically, if someone should shoot you think they shouldn't go to prison? Is that what you're saying? I mean, it'd be anarchy then, because everyone would have to do vigilantism. And of course he wouldn't say that. He'd be like, oh no, that's hate. We got to put those people in prison. So in practice, really what he means is he just wants to do it racially, right? So if it's like some black guy kills a white guy, that he doesn't want the black guy to go to prison. He wants restorative justice or something like that. But if a white guy should kill a black guy in New York City, that never happens. But let's say if it should happen, oh no, then it'd be a trail of tears, and the evil Nazi needs to go to prison. So that's all he's trying to do there. But this is how far we are now because of the demographic change. We get someone like Zohran Mamdani, and he'll probably be the mayor of New York City. And we're seeing the same thing happen in Minneapolis. Minneapolis in the 70s was a very white city, I mean. That's where they had like Mary Tyler Moore. And now they have a Somali, because in the 90s and the early 2000s, they started to pour Somalis in Minnesota. I don't think anyone voted for that, but that was dumped on the people there. And now they have this guy. He's got the typical Somali look. He looks like that meme, the guy, I'm the captain now. He's got that kind of look. Let's take a look at him here. His name's Omar Fatah. Most Somalis, they have this sort of look.
Make dua for him and pray for him. I understand that our Somali communities are all connected to each other here in Minnesota and back home. And I ask for your support.
So he's talking about all the Somali communities are connected with each other, including in here in Minnesota and back home. So he considers home to be Somalia, not America. He's just here because they get the benefits.
There's always been a link between our community here as well as back home. And I'm running to bridge that gap and unite all of us and represent all of us. Because when we succeed here, we succeed everywhere. And I'm hoping to do that just like Abdrazak, inshallah.
So these people don't belong here. And I don't care if they're citizens or not, they need to be deported. But this is what happens. It's not like there's magic dirt. They come over here and then they start to become us. That hasn't happened. They don't consider themselves us. They're a separate nation. They're Somalis. They have different customs, language, religion, race. They're not part of us. And they know that. He knows that. He's saying that. He's saying back home, our homeland is not America. They're just here because they can't run a country. When they run a country, it turns into a shithole, warlords and everything else. So they like it over here to get the stuff, but they still hate us and they want us to pay for it. So this is only possible because of immigration. And it's horrible to see what has happened because of that. But yeah, that's where we are right now with that. All right, let's see here. What else is happening? We did get some good news. Adam Schiff, he's like that bug-eyed guy. He's been charged with possible mortgage fraud. So that guy, that was the news. It looks like he might be charged, and that was a good thing. And some more charges, and this is probably the big news of the day. It came out today. It was about Obama and Hillary, and it involved the 2016 election. And what happens, there's new evidence of Obama administration conspiracy to subvert President Trump's 2016 victory and presidency. On Friday, the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, revealed overwhelming evidence that demonstrates how, after President Trump won the 2016 election against Hillary Clinton, President Obama and his national security cabinet, they manufactured and politicized intelligence to lay the groundwork for what was essentially a year-long coup against President Trump. This was a whole Russian hoax. They knew it was fake, but they were trying to do a color revolution, just like they did in Ukraine in 2014 against our own president. They weren't expecting Trump to win in 2016. It shocked them. Hillary was enraged. She got drunk. They were just stunned. So at that point, they decided to make up fake evidence to try to hurt Trump and try to impeach him on the whole Russian gate. It was all fake. And it looks like now Tulsi's got evidence, allegedly, that proves this. So it was all long suspected this is what has happened. But this is serious. It's interesting how the Democrats, they always do what they accuse us of doing. And they accuse Trump of trying to overturn the election in 2020 and insurrection and not liking democracy. But in 2016, according to Tulsi Gabbard, we have evidence that's what they did exactly. They didn't accept the results of the election, and they started this conspiracy, in a real sense, a conspiracy. They were doing unethical, illegal activities to try to frame Trump with fake evidence to prevent him from being president or try to get him impeached. So this is going to be a huge story. As Stephen Miller said, a seditious conspiracy to overthrow the government and democracy of the United States. There's almost nothing the deep state will not do to perpetuate its power over the people. And so it's going to be interesting to see this. I know the media is not going to like to cover this, but that is the situation. So I predict could be interesting to say the least. So I'm looking forward to seeing what will happen there. All right. Some other claims that happened this week. President Trump was diagnosed with chronic venous insufficiency, the CVI, his legs are swelling. There's a lot of rumors that he's getting dementia. I don't really see it. He is kind of angry and he's kind of scattered, but he's always been that way. But he does have a problem with his legs. That's not unusual for someone almost 80 years old. I think all he pretty much has to do is wear now like support socks. And so that's where that was the news. So there's the rumors like JD Vance will take over. I don't know. I don't necessarily see that. All right. The other fake news that came out that was trending, all the leftists this week were clutching their pearls, was like, oh no, evil Trump. He's cutting funding to USAID, and all this food that was going to feed poor African children is being destroyed in warehouses in Dubai. There's all this food and they're destroying it all. Oh, how evil Trump is. But then you look at the rest of the story. I was curious. I'm like, really? Is this true? I don't think we should feed Africans anyway. It makes them dependent. They need we're told how smart and Wakanda and everything else. It's a rich continent. They should be able to feed their own kids. Otherwise, let nature deal with it. We shouldn't get involved. So I don't think we should give them food anyway. But the issue here was that they weren't just destroying the food to be mean. It was that the food had expired, right? Food has an expiration date. And this isn't the first time it's happened. It's happened in prior administrations. They get emergency food. Sometimes they get too much. They put it in a warehouse. And after a certain amount of time, the food expires. So you have to destroy it. Otherwise, what do they want Trump to do? If he gave the food out after it expired, right? They'd be, oh, Trump is trying to poison little African kids with giving them expired food. So what's he going to do? But the shit libs, they fell for this all. And they ran with that this week, and they made a big issue about it. But it was all basically a fraud. So there we go. All right. So let's see what else. We did have some white pills this week too. Is PBS and NPR is no longer on the dole. They got cut off from the taxpayer funding, which I think is a good thing. I don't know why we need to fund them anyway, but here was an announcement on CNN
not
here.
Happening now.
No, this is the end of a publicly funded media era. This dates back to the days of black and white television. Back in the 60s, Congress saw a value for PBS and NPR, but no more. As a result of this rescission, radio and TV stations will have to lay off staffers and cut back on programming. Some smaller stations will suffer more than bigger stations, right? Popular shows like Daniel Tiger's.
Well, this is so weird. And one of the reasons they said they needed the funding, because it doesn't really make sense. We have plenty of news. We have the internet now. You have what I'm doing, right? I'm providing you the news. I'm not getting any government funds. And so why does NPR and PBS needs government money? If they have a valuable product, people should be willing to donate, or they should be willing to sell ads, or they should be able to monetize it. They can try to do SuperChats. So that they would do it, but there's no market. They have this product that if people don't want to pay for it, then we shouldn't have it. And the whole reasoning behind it, and because I looked into it, was when this first came in like 1950, the idea was, we need to provide access to like rural environments or underrepresented communities so they can get access to the media. I'm like, it's 2025. It's not 1950 anymore, right? It's ridiculous. For example, I'm in rural Arkansas, it's about as rural as you get, and I'm here with you on the internet. And I get Netflix, and I get everything like that. So it's not like people are isolating more. There's no reason for this. It's just ridiculous. So this was the good news. Yeah, they were biased, and I agree that, but that's not the reason I was opposed to it. Even if they weren't biased, we had no reason to fund it. So that would be good, getting rid of that. So that was an excellent thing to get rid of that. And then we had Tucker Carlson. He was good this week. He was, I think, at the a conference, Turning Point USA. It's amazing how many of our ideas are becoming mainstream, including with Tucker. And let's listen to him here. This is, I think he brought up a good point.
Obviously, that's absurd. I quote the New Testament, but I also refer to common sense when I say that no man can serve two masters. It's not possible. I only have one wife for that reason. You say to your wife, I'm gonna take another wife, but I'm gonna love you just as much. Nothing's gonna change. My wife's gonna look at me like, no, it's one wife. Because you can only really pledge your loyalty to one person or one country.
Right. And we shouldn't have these dual citizenship in the United States. We should get rid of it. And we need people, we don't need like that, the guy that's running for mayor of Minneapolis, when he talks about back home, he's talking about Somalia. Obviously, his loyalty is to Somalia. That's his people, that's his nation. That's fine, but he doesn't belong in our country. And I would say this is some people that put Israel first. They don't belong here then. If they want to put Israel first, fine, move to Tel Aviv. You really don't belong here.
It's a fact. And there's also a sense, and this is relevant to me, and I know you're speaking about Israel, but it's not just Israel, to be honest. I think it's a huge problem. I think anybody, by the way, who serves in a foreign military should lose his citizenship immediately.
That's right.
There are a lot of Americans who've served in the IDF. They should lose their citizenship. There's a lot of Americans who've served in Ukraine, and they should lose their citizenship. You can't fight for another country and remain an American, period. Obviously. I mean, it's like not even, it's so funny how all of us get cowed into being like, oh, that's hate speech. No, it's not. You don't hear hate in my voice because there isn't any. It's just an obvious, recognition of the truth. But there's a more insidious.
It's really insidious how groups like the ADL or SPLC, anything they don't like, they call hate. It is clever how they've done this. And well, it doesn't even matter. Hate can be a good thing. Like God in the Bible says he hates sin. So hate is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's irrelevant. It's either you're right or not, but it is clever how they've done that.
And I say it's not just Israel. I'm not just trying to like give myself cover. I'm being honest. There are a ton of countries that offer citizenship, actually, some of which I love. I have been offered citizenship in a couple of different countries that I really like, and I thought about it. And then I thought, no, there's something about being lashed to the mast. Like everyone can see that America's in trouble, the demographic trends are really bad, and the country's decaying.
So he's talking about demographics. So this is a Turning Point USA. You have a guy speaking here, Tucker Carlson, that you can't serve two masters, and that includes Israel. And we're having a bad problems in this country because of demographic changes. This is what we've been talking about.
Cities are falling apart. So you're like, oh, wow, maybe I should flee. And then I'm like, my ancestors are from here. My parents are buried right across from my kitchen. I'm staying here. And the second you make that decision in your head, like, I don't care what happens to America, I will be here. It totally changes your attitude. You're like, I don't even care. It's my country. And they've been here for so long and fought in all of these wars. My ancestors, and I'm sure yours, would be totally shocked by some of the conversations. Foreign flags in the Congress? Are you joking?
Yeah. Like, why are they flying the Israeli flag? That's just obnoxious. Or the Ukrainian flag. It should be the United States flag.
Get out. And so, no, once you decide you're all in on your country, it really changes the way you approach everything. And by the way, it should be the baseline requirement. You shouldn't be allowed to serve in government if you're not a US citizen or you're a dual citizen. Are you joking? Of course not. And I would love to know what the justification is. And of course, there isn't one, which is why they're allowed to just write you off as some sort of like freak, some internet freak, hater, Nazi, whatever. I'm not. Just an American who loves my country, and I think it's fair to demand that the people running my country love it every bit as much as I do.
So you can see how far we've become. I mean, I've joked that everyone's starting to sound like RAMZPAUL now, and it's true. It's true. So it is really heartwarming to see Tucker say that. So that was good. So there's some white pills. All right. I always like to end the stream on just something kind of fun. This was really cute with a turtle. Usually I do a dog or a cat. This was a turtle, and is a little turtle got on a skateboard. I'll turn off the music. YouTube doesn't like music. So here he goes. Look at him go. You can kind of control it too. The cat's like, what the hell? This turtle's after me. That's awesome. That's awesome. That turtle's having fun. So that was cute. Well, guys, it's good to be back streaming. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I hope you guys have a really good weekend. It's Friday, right? Yeah, Friday. Have a good weekend. And I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.